Hey everyone, it's your host Tommy Talks, and welcome back to the NSSR, where I'm encouraging you to run your own race to medicine one day at a time. I have a fabulous co host with me today, and we're going to talk about the personal statement.
Hey guys, my name is Nick Odiase. I am a first-year medical student. I just got into medical school. I graduated undergrad in 2017. So I applied and I went through 3 years of applying before getting in. So I definitely know what it's like to not be a traditional student, to say the least. So.
Thank you, Nick. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that you're here, because you will see when his story comes out, which I actually interviewed him, watch out for that. We talk about the importance of reevaluating your application when you don't go into medical school the first go around. And one of the things you mentioned was the importance of a personal statement.
It's one of the most important parts of your application. Most of the time is going to be a lot of people doing very, very comparable things. So at the end of the day, it comes up to, okay, do you want to actually do this? And if so, why? Do you have that passion? Do you have the drive to continue to move?
The personal statement is the one place where you actually get to sincerely articulate that interest in your own words. And that's why this is so important for both of us to discuss here today. So right off the bat, we have about 9 don'ts. So we're going to go back and forth. I'm going to start with the first one. And I think it's one of the most important ones, which is don't lie or embellish your personal statement. When you start a personal statement with like, the clock struck 12 and their body went cold, I don't no, okay? Don't exaggerate, don't embellish, do not lie. 99% of the time, you know. 2, you don't want to start off your career in medicine that way to begin with. If you think about it, right? What does that say about you and what you're going to do for medicine? So
yes, and I think that kind of goes off of what I was just saying, is that what are they going to draw on once they find out you lied? It's
exactly.
Like, do they really want to be here? They're not telling us the real story. They're just trying to get into medical school, which
Very
shows
true.
like, do you really have a why? If you're lying, do you really have a why? You don't really want to be here. You're just trying to get in.
In general, I don't want my viewers' applications in the trash can, so don't lie. Don't tell them I sent you. That's the second don't is don't tell without showing. What do I mean? When you're talking about your personal statement, I don't want to see I volunteered in the homeless shelter and learned compassion, and that's why I want to be a doctor. Like, okay, you just told me you learned compassion, but that doesn't tell me anything, right? If I tell Nick, I'm a compassionate person, Nick will be like, okay. For you. Like, but if me and Nick go volunteer someone, he sees how I interact with patients or people who have less than I do, I don't have to tell Nick that I'm a compassionate person. He will probably go tell someone else that I'm a compassionate person, right? You have to be able to demonstrate that with words, what people would otherwise see from being around you, right? If you think about your personal statement as what is speaking on your behalf, then you want to make it do exactly that.
Okay. So my point is, don't wing it. That means write more than one draft. You have to practice at this. This is not just a one hit and you made it, home run. It's amazing. Continue to workshop it. It's not something that you're gonna get on the first try. I can guarantee you that. I've written my personal statement multiple times, and now that I'm in medical school, I'm like, it's bad. It's still bad. Like, I still need more work on it. Yeah.
If y'all want us to read our personal statements, tell us in the comments.
Oh, please.
Okay, never mind. Don't tell us in the comments.
Oh gosh, it's so bad. Anyway, but it's gonna be bad. And I think with anything that you're writing is going to, like, just go for it and then make sure you have time to look over it and redo it. Because a lot of times people can get nervous about even starting and then wasting time and everything like that. Start, just go for it. But make sure you know that first one is not anywhere near what you're going to turn in. It's not anywhere near what's going to be your final draft. So please don't wing this. That kind of goes hand in hand with my next point is make sure you have other people to help you with that. That means other people reading that. And that means anyone, your mom, your dad, your brother or sister, your friend, your middle school principal, anybody, literally anybody can read this over and ask them what they think of this, of your personal statement. Having a doctor do it would be great, but it doesn't have to be a doctor. Make sure somebody else gets their eyes on it, so they can see things that you just didn't notice or you thought was a kid that's like, you're not really displaying what you want to display in this point.
You know, I remember when I started working on my personal statement for residency, I think I showed it to my mom and she's like, this doesn't sound like you. And I was like, first of all, rude. I was high-key offended. But you know, you need that because these people know you. As much as you think, oh, they don't know anything about medicine, which I know my mommy knows something about medicine if she's listening. But they may not know anything about medicine, but they know you.
Yeah.
And they will be able to see you in that personal statement or see the lack thereof.
For me, being like the science-minded person, this is like one of the hardest parts about this whole process.
Yep.
English is not my thing. Like writing up something and my brain is just not good at it. So it's like, it doesn't have to be some doctor. It's like, oh, they're a doctor. They're at where I want to be. They might not be that good at English at the end of the day, to be honest.
I can confirm.
So make sure, get anybody, and anybody can be, like I said, anybody can be good at English. So it doesn't have to be some credentialed, prestigious person. Just get somebody to read it. It's like, this doesn't sound like you, like you were saying. This just sounds kind of weird. I'm not getting what you're trying to say.
But in the same vein, if you can get somebody that's in admissions to read it, do it.
True.
Because they will tell you, like, that's what I'm looking for, that's what I'm not looking for. So definitely do that too. You can find them. And definitely connect with medical students. Medical students are really good for that when they're not studying or, you know.
True.
They're really good because they're not that removed from the exact same experience, and they can tell you what worked, what didn't. Because sometimes when you go on interviews, they will comment on your personal statement and say, I really like the way you said this or whatever. So that goes back to not lying too, because if you say something you can't back it up or remember it,
exactly.
That's hecka shady. And that ties into my next point of don't forget to spell check. Oh my gosh. The way it's looked at is this. If you are taking the time to submit an application to be a medical student, it means that this is something that you are very vested in. Right? If I'm very vested in this, I want to demonstrate that in every way possible, which means I looked over all aspects of my application to make sure there were no spelling errors. And this also goes back to why you need multiple people to read it too. Because how many times have you read a paper 15 times, thought it was perfect, submitted it, and then seen an error? And it happens all the time because we write something, so we know what we meant to say. So sometimes we will see it instead of seeing what's actually there. And so having somebody read it is really essential because they were like, you're missing a comma or you spelled that wrong, or I don't even know if that's a word. Meanwhile, you're like, but I know what I was trying to say, right? But they don't. And so spell check with humans, spell check with the computer, whatever you got to do it, because you don't want also to present the view to AdComs, which is admissions committee, that you were not prepared. Because if you have two people with similar statistics and someone has an essay with laden with spelling errors, it may show that, or it may seem that they are not prepared or they didn't put all the work in to make sure that their essay was good. So you want to make sure you present the best foot forward in all aspects, including spelling and grammar. The next don't that I have is don't apologize. And that sounds weird, but I'll explain. So we talk a lot about personal statements also being a place not only to declare your interest in medicine, but also to talk about the hurdles that you face. And as this channel is called a Not So Smooth Road, it is almost guaranteed that you have had hurdles at some point.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about your hurdles in your personal statement, approach it as an opportunity to spin the story, not in a bad way, but it's to give light to something that otherwise people would have looked down on. If I come to Nick and I say, Nick, I had a car accident right before my exam and I did terrible and life sucks and I'm not gonna be a good med student, or a good resident, Nick is gonna be like, man, that sucks. And, Nick is going to sympathize, but if Nick was going to admissions committee the next day, he'd be like, y'all may not want to catch her because she,
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
But if I go to Nick and I say, hey, I had a car accident before my step 1 exam, and I was just all over the place with lawyer visits, doctor visits, but while I wasn't doing that, I was studying as much as I could. I didn't have a car to go to the library, but I was, in my room isolated, trying to do videos, trying to do questions. And given those circumstances, man, I thank God for what I got on my step exam. Like it showed me that I could do anything that I put my mind to, even in the worst of circumstances. Nick is gonna be like, man, that's a story, man. I hope you're okay. If he goes to AdCom the next day, he's like, y'all want her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see what I mean? So your ability to put new light on something that may have been not so smooth is going to be your advantage in your essay. And that's what I mean by don't apologize. Don't make your personal statement an apology letter to AdCom for something that you felt went wrong in your life or in your schooling process. Make it a chance for you to say, despite these hurdles, I am here and I am ready to go.
I think the next one is don't list your resume. So you are going to enter all this information into your application already. There's no need to restate it. This is not a job application where they make you do that. They know, they know what you've done. It's kind of like the same thing. It's kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. This is your why. If you are just restating your application, you're like, this is why I should be. It doesn't matter if you should be or shouldn't be. Why do you want to? Like this is, I want to. This is you expressing your desire. So it's not just, oh, this person is great for this position. Okay, but do they want it? Do they want to be medical?
Right.
You can't just be like, oh, well, yeah, I did this in high school and I did this, and I wrote 10 publications. It's like, okay, great. Why do you want to be a doctor? Oh, because I wrote all this. Okay, good. But why do you want to be a doctor? Like, it's your why. Like, what's your story? You have to be you have to allow it to be part of your story as to this is the natural conclusion of going through in my life. This is why I want to go this way, this direction in my life.
It just occurred to me too that if you think about your personal statement as a rehearsal dinner for your interview, it'll help a lot, because when you go to interview, they're gonna ask you, so why do you want to do medicine? And if you can't talk about it, it shows that you didn't think about it.
Yeah.
If you can't write about it, it shows that you didn't think about it. And so if you think about it in the same way, it makes it a lot easier to put in the work, because it sucks. We're not gonna lie to you. It sucks to sit there and write and type and do whatever and then rip it up and start again. But if you think about it as a dress rehearsal for your interview, that all these thoughts I'm thinking are not going to waste, because somebody's gonna ask me about this at some point. And all those secondaries, you probably gonna have to rewrite that stuff at some point. So if you use it that way, it becomes more an exercise in introspection than anything else. It's not a wasted effort. I think my next point was don't plagiarize. This kind of goes hand in hand with not lying, but also don't plagiarize, right? Because as much as we know writing sucks and it's hard, it is very easy to find an essay and be like, ooh, that's good. And then like somehow mysteriously your essay sounds just like that. No.
Yep.
The thing you have to think about is people on admissions have read hundreds, probably even thousands of personal statements. They know when something is not legit.
Yeah.
And if you see a good personal statement, if you think about it, if it's a really good personal statement, it's probably really memorable. And it was submitted by somebody to somewhere. If you submit the same essay, somebody's like, I know that.
Yeah.
That sounds really, you don't want to be in that position, because best believe all the places you apply to will find out.
Yep.
I'm telling you, because people in medicine talk.
That kind of goes on to like, why risk it? Like, why risk that? Why lie? Why plagiarize? It's not worth the risk at all. I don't know who told you that was a good idea. It's really not. Like, no. We just want to make sure that if it's in your head, don't try it.
If you were remotely thinking about it, don't. And the last don't that I have is, and I think it's a very important one, Don't put anything in your personal statement that you are not comfortable discussing. I say this because many times when we talk about medicine, and for many people, medicine comes on as a result of sometimes a good experience, sometimes a bad experience. Some of those experiences we're still not dealt with. We still haven't processed. We still haven't grieved. We still haven't gone through dealing and handling with them. That if you put in your personal statement, it makes it fair game.
Yeah.
If you go to interview, like I said, if you think about your personal statement as a dress rehearsal for interview, if you go to interview and I ask you, so tell me about this trauma that you endured, and you burst into tears, crying is okay. I cried in my interview. I'm gonna just tell you right now, and I got it. So crying is fine, but if I can't talk about it, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of like your trauma is not valid. It completely is. Your experiences and your ability to process at your own time is yours. But if you put it in your personal statement, it opens up permission. Because if I met you, I would not say, tell me about the trauma that you endured. No, that's not a question, right? Or at least it shouldn't be. But if you write it on your personal statement, you're almost inviting someone to ask.
Yes.
So be very careful about what you write and make sure that you are comfortable discussing and going through the details of whatever you put in there. So that way you maximize your chance to really shine and really talk about this thing. Because again, like we talked about not making an apology letter, if you are not able to talk about something, you can't give it the positive spin that the AdCom needs to see that you are an excellent candidate for med school, right? If you can't even get through what happened, you can't tell me how you're better off for it or how you have grown or how you have learned from that experience. Does that make sense? So we talked about a lot of don'ts, and probably left a bad taste in some people's mouths, especially those people that are trying to copy. Sorry, fact. One thing that we wanted to do was go through a do, one big do, and that is do reflect. And I know this is a very vague thing, and we say, oh, reflect, take time and reflect. What does that mean? So what we're going to do is an exercise where I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask a question and a reflection question, and we will talk about it from our perspective. So that way you can get an idea of what we're saying you should do when you're trying to brainstorm for your personal statement. Make sense? All right. So the first question is, why did you want to do medicine?
For me, at first, it was always just part of my life. I grew up in healthcare, basically. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a pharmacist. So I've always been around healthcare. And I saw the passion they had for helping people. I saw Dad talking about patients that he would encounter. And it was just always a possibility. It was like, I want to be a part of somebody's life like that. And it kind of became, I wanted to be a part of somebody's story. It doesn't matter if I saw them once, I never saw them again, or I was a consistent long-term character in their life. I wanted to be there to improve it. And I knew that being a physician, I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to impact families, impact individual lives and multiple people at the same time in a positive way. I knew that through medicine, I could achieve that. Going into how somebody else would figure that out is you really have to think about, is this what I want? And it kind of not like a midlife crisis, but make sure you know, make sure you know, is this what you want? It has to be what you want for you to be able to answer this question.
For me, my first why was because God told me to. Long story, we'll go over that another day. My second why was, in reassessing all the experiences that I had in university, I was a person where if I were to base my decision to go into medicine off of my life experience and my family experience, I would be running the other way. And I said so in my essay. But in my experiences in college, I realized that one, I wanted to be in healthcare. But two, I wanted an intimate relationship with patients. I wanted to be there for them in person. I wanted to have that interaction that was going to impact their life, very much like Nick said. And I realized that all the things that I saw myself doing in my career, I couldn't really do them successfully in any other field except medicine. The way I've known always that I wanted to be in education, I want to teach. But the way I feel most fulfilled in teaching is in medicine. I know that I wanted to deal with patients, and the way I wanted to deal with them the most fulfilling way from what I had experienced was in medicine. The combination of research, education, all these things for me were best suited to medicine, and also the populations that I saw really pushed me in that direction as well. So that's the first question. Why medicine? Again, if you're doing this for the first time, it would not be as concise and sweet and to the point as this. We do this because we've written this 25,000 times. And as you see, we're still going all over the place. At least
exactly. I was like,
at least
I was like, wow, that question wasn't, my answer was not that great. Like,
and you see what I mean? It's different for everyone. It's different for everyone, and it is okay. You don't have to sound like anyone. No, we did not say, I like science and I want to help people. Those words should not come out of your mouth. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay to think it. Don't say it. Not because it's bad. It's just that people have said it so much that it will almost look like you didn't think about it, even if it is true. So find another way to say it, is my point. All right. The second question that I wanted to ask both of us, and I can start off with this one, is when did you first think about medicine and why? So for me, I thought about medicine like as a possibility. I think in high school, and I actually thought about like it for all the wrong reasons, right? So I always say I'm a Nigerian American, and the expectation is that you will be successful, but that successful scope is very narrow. So it's like medicine, law, pharmacy, engineering, or God knows if you're going to be a great person if you do something else. But that was the expectation. And when I went into university, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. And then I learned what a doctor did and how long it took to be one. I was like, it's not my cup of tea. And I jumped ship real quick, like first semester of college quick. And I decided that, I was going to do pharmacy or something because I knew I loved chemistry. I loved biology, biochemistry, and that was my jam. And so I was like, I know I want to use this in healthcare, but I'll do pharmacy instead. And then we get to the part where God told me no, and then we'll go from there. But for me, that was when the seed was planted. And I say that to say that when you first think about medicine, doesn't have to be when you decided to do medicine, right? This is just, when was that seed sown in your head? Because then you have a time period of say, okay, how did this progress, right? Like I said, I decided to jump ship. And then I came back after reassessing all the stuff that I had to do and say, oh, okay, now I want to do this for all the right reasons, and then come back to that. So just be encouraged that your story is your story, and that is completely okay.
I think that's a very, like, an extremely good point you brought up. I think a good part, like you said, is whenever it first came to your mind, not when you decided to pursue it. And I think that's a really, really important point, because there might be some people that are thinking, oh, the longer I've thought about it, the better it looks. And that's not the case. No. I know plenty of people. I know somebody right now that's applying. He got his degree in communications. He had no intention to be a doctor. And now he is taking classes. He's taking his science classes to start becoming a doctor. This life is not as set in stone. That's the whole reason for this podcast. Life is not going to go exactly how you want it. It's exactly, this, and this.
Nope.
Adcoms know that. They know not everybody's like, this is what I've wanted to be for all my life. And now I have a 4.0, and now I did all the publications, so I'm getting in right after college. That's not how it's always going to work out.
Thank you. And props to you for plugging the channel. Like, I didn't even have to say nothing. Like, thank you.
It is true. It's very true. For me, it's I say all that, but my first time thinking about being a doctor was in the 3rd grade. I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. I was just kind of like, this would be kind of cool. And it's just kind of like, I was thinking about that, and I had like pastors and stuff say that over me. So I was like, oh, okay. And so that's what piqued my interest. And I was like, I mean, I do like science. I do like application of science. So not just like theories and things like that. I like applicable science that I can use to improve people's life. And I was like, that's kind of what a doctor does. So it's kind of like the why medicine, the stereotypical is like, I like science and I want
to help people.
That is the very basic level of where I was when I first thought about it. So I was like, okay, this would be a good idea. Why not? And so like all through like middle school and high school, I was like, oh yeah, this would be a good idea. And then it kind of shook. It's not always going to be like, this is what I want to do. This is always how it's going to go. It kind of shook in college. It happens. Everybody has that thing. It's like, oh, is this what I really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good thing. It's like you made sure that this is what you want to do. Not just, oh, well, this is what I wanted to do all my life and my parents are cool with it. Is this what you want to do? So yeah, that's my first thought. Was very young, but I had that little shake of, is this actually what I want to become?
And this shows you that the trajectory looks different for everyone. My trajectory was high school to college. His was third grade to college. You see what I mean? And it looks different for everyone, and that is completely okay. But the more you reflect on yours, you can see what changed in my interest in medicine. When did it shake? Why did it shake? And why did I come back to it? These are the questions that this thought process should spur, because these are the ideas you want to record on your personal statement so you can tell your story on your terms and in your words. What characteristics do you think make a great physician?
That's a great question, because it says a great physician, not just. I think one thing that makes a great physician is remembering that these are human beings. That is a very, like, there's patients and there's cases, and that's great, but these are human beings. They have families, they have likes and dislikes, they have hobbies, they have things they want to do. This is an entire person. It's not just their gastrointestinal system. It's not just a cardiovascular system. It is a person. It is a human being. And if we remember that, then we are able to truly be great doctors, be healers. Not just, oh yeah, here's some medications to deal with what your stomach is going through. It's like, this is what happens. I need to account for this because, oh, their family likes doing this, or this is their cultural background. It's seeing them as a full person. That's what makes a doctor a great doctor.
I think for me, one of the things that makes a great physician, I completely agree, is a sincere regard for patients as human beings. But I also think that one thing that makes great physicians are people who are great teachers. And I say that from the background of someone who is very interested in education, loves teaching, and loves talking to people. If you're a great teacher, you have the unique ability to explain anything to anyone at any level. And one thing that I realized is that many times in medicine, just think about yourself. How many times have you gone to a doctor and they say something, you walk out of that appointment more confused than you walked in? Because one, you don't know what they're talking about. Two, you feel too stupid to ask, right? And three, right, I don't know what I don't know. And three, they never made room for you to feel comfortable to do so. So a lot of times we have situations in medicine, there are situations that are beyond obviously everybody's control. But sometimes there's some issues that are just simple communication errors. Simple, I didn't know. And I think that a good teacher is someone who, one, figures out where is this person at? What do they know already? At what level do I need to explain this to them? And then two, makes an environment that is safe enough and encouraging enough for a patient to feel comfortable talking about, okay, doc, I don't understand this, or I'm worried about this, or does that medicine really do that? Can you explain how it works again? These kinds of things, you can talk to somebody that you're comfortable with. But when you see this doctor who comes in on this almighty pedestal and is talking about cardiovascular health to you, and you're like, I don't even know what the C in cardiovascular is, fam. Like, you get what I mean? Again, it comes back to reflecting. It comes back to seeing, what have I learned from my experience that has taught me what a great doctor? Because like I said, medicine, we come to it for good reasons and also for bad reasons. You may know what a doctor is not, right?
Yeah.
You may know exactly what a doctor is not. Now, if we're writing a personal statement, I may want my person to walk away from my essay feeling a little bit more positive than me telling him all the reasons about what a doctor is not. So take that and tell them what you know a doctor is, right? I learned from this experience that a good doctor should be this. even though I didn't experience it. You see that? It's very different from saying, this doctor, but don't do that in your essay, please. Don't rant in your essay. That should be another note. Don't rant. If you're interested in serving the underserved, you know that a good doctor, a great doctor should have compassion. You know that a great doctor should have respect. You know that a great doctor should be someone with a servant heart. If you're somebody that's interested in education, like I said, merging, it shows that you really thought about it. It's not just a doctor, somebody that likes to help people. Yes, but what next? Follow-up question to that. What about you merges with those characteristics? So for me, I'm somebody who, when I grew up, when I came to the States, I was bullied a lot as a kid. And I really loved school before, but I started to hate school a lot. And I did not think that I did well. I obviously didn't do well because I hated school. I wasn't like trying to be there all the time and do work. But I wasn't doing as well as I used to. And especially in science, I remember 8th grade vehemently hating the moon phases because I could not figure them things out for the life of me. I just don't know why. It was just that specific topic. I just didn't get it. But I remember my teacher, my science teacher, shout out to Miss Embrick, wherever you are, God bless you. She sat me down and she was like, no, you're gonna get this. And she took time to break it down for me. And I think that really changed my perspective on what was possible with the help of a good teacher. And so from then on, I was like, I know what a good teacher is. I want to be that.
Yeah.
And so in high school, I tutored people. I would, like my friends, I would explain algebra and calculus to them from our level in a way that they could understand. In college, I tutored people. I would talk to people with biochem and do questions and make weird old rap songs to remember pathways, all kinds of weird stuff, right? Because I knew that you had to come down to somebody's level to really make them understand. You can't talk down to somebody and they'll get it. And so for me, I've always seen that the best physicians that I've interacted with are people that can do that same thing, but with medicine. And so for me, I know that that's a characteristic that I have been able to practice and hone and really grow in education in college and high school. But with medicine, that's why I want to learn it so that way I can know how to explain it to somebody in their own words, in their own terms, and ways that they can really understand and then also comply with. Because if somebody understands why heart health is important, best believe they're going to take their medication. They're going to eat right. They're going to exercise. It's going to become easier to do, than them like, yeah, the doc told me to take this pill on or what it's for. I know the name of it. I'm just taking it. Like, they may take your pill, but are they doing anything else that's going to help them for their heart? So that I think is one of the reasons why I love that characteristic, and I'm trying to, demonstrate it everywhere I go.
I feel like my answer is pretty much very similar to yours. It's basically when I was growing up, I had a lot. I thought about my role models. I thought about like why they were my role models, what they do have that impact on me, and I realized they treated me like somebody. I was somebody because kind of like you, I was bullied. I was treated as less than. But there were also people that I held dear to my heart that treated me as a full person and understood that. And I was like, this is something that I want to emulate. This is something I want to do. So from then on, I wanted to see full people as full people. My answer was kind of weird to this in my interview, in my personal statement, because it's true, but it's just kind of weird. I was very big on television. I still am. So it's just kind of like, I know what it looks like to have a developed character. I know what it's like to see their story and what made them this person. And then I kind of just moved that to outside television. Like, there's a reason why you're this way. There's a reason why you have the personality you do. There's a story behind that, and I want to know it. And that's like how I've always been. It's like, okay, how do you feel about this certain situation, and why do you think that way? And what made you get to that point? So getting to see the full character, in my point of view, is like seeing the full person as they are. You value them more, and they in turn value your opinion more. They see more than just, oh, this person just telling me what to do. It's like they care about me. And if they care about me and they're telling me to do something, I'm going to have more, I'm probably going to listen to them more. So I think that is kind of how I had that, like, humanism is so important in healthcare, is that
Right.
otherwise it's just like, oh, they're tossing me medications, they don't even care about me, as opposed to they care about my life, they've asked about my kids, my wife, my family, and they care about me, and they're giving me this medication because they know what this does. So I'm going to take it because they care about me. And it's kind of like what you were saying. If they care about me and they explain how it works, I'm going to take it because I know how it works and I know that they're doing this for the best.
So as you see, practice makes perfect, because best believe this is not what we said the first time we were asked this question. It was not the smoothest story, I promise you. But again, the power of reflection is key, because we now took our interest, we took our story, and we took our future path, what we see ourselves doing, and put that all together in this story. So if someone were to interview us, this is what it would sound like, because we've taken the time to think about it and really process, how does this fit in with what I see myself doing? Where do I see myself? And that's something you have to ask yourself. You don't have to know exactly what specialty you want to do, but what kind of doctor do you see yourself being? Do you see yourself being someone that sits down with the patient and really goes through the medication list with them? Do you see yourself being someone whose personality is really fast paced, and you see yourself being with people, for quick periods of time? Because I know not everybody's trying to sit with everybody for 3 hours. I know. And that's completely okay, but you need to be aware of these parts of your personality, because when you talk about medicine and what you want to do, it becomes apparent where you fit best. But those are the questions that I want each one of you to ask yourselves when you're preparing to do a personal statement. Because what I always tell people, and another question that comes up with a personal statement is like, okay, when should I start writing it? What I tell people is, okay, if you're going to apply in May or June, right? Ideally in January, this is ideally, y'all, best case scenario. In January, start jotting down ideas. Ask yourself these questions and kind of bullet point your answers. Start thinking about it. Start making these thoughts roll around in your head, so that by February, you're starting to maybe put together a paragraph of like, this is where I started, this is where I'm thinking, maybe this is what I want to do in the future. Put some thoughts together into sentences. And then by March, you're really trying to get that first draft out. February, March, try to get that first, like, this is my first stab at it. It's terrible. I hate it already, but this is what I have. And then send that to people, so that way they can rip it to shreds. You need people who will rip it to shreds. If anybody tells you, oh, it's great, don't listen to them. Get somebody else. It's not. We're gonna tell you right now, it's not. Get somebody who will really break it down for you and say, this, does that make sense? Put this here. Maybe you should word it like this. Get that. And then go back to the drawing board, do it again. Go back to the drawing board, do it again. Go back to the drawing board, do it again. So that by May or June, you are having a piece that you're like, this is a work of art. It's probably still gonna get ripped to shreds again, but it's okay. Because at that point, you feel a little bit more confident in that writing process, because very few people can sit down and write a masterpiece the first time around. That's what this whole video has been about. You need time. You do. It is really, really important. In summary, the big things that we want you to take away are the 9 don'ts and the 1 do. 1, don't lie or embellish. 2, don't tell without showing. 3, don't wing it. Please don't wing it. 4, don't limit who looks it over. 5, don't apologize. 6, don't list your resume. 7, don't forget to spell check. 8, don't plagiarize. And 9, don't include anything you're not comfortable discussing. And of course, the big do is do reflect. And we talked about those questions that you need to ask yourself and how you need to use that as a launching pad for your ideas and writing. And if you notice, we never talked about how to introduce a story, how to structure your paragraphs, because that's unique to everyone. And there's 100 videos for how to do that. Everybody's writing style is different. Everybody's voice is different. I am not going to dictate to you the structure, because I promise you I've broken every rule that I've seen when I researched before I did this. I was like, ooh, I did that. And it worked out. So as long as you are being authentic, and as long as the people around you are helping you write the right essay, you will be fine. It's really more about the introspection than anything else. If you take the time to think and figure out who you are and why you want to do this, your essay will flow. Okay.
Yeah.
Any final advice, Nick?
I would say something that I plan on doing, like starting now, is journal your experiences.
Yes.
That's a very good thing. As early as you can, journal. If you had experiences now, right now, or right after you finish this podcast, get a notebook and start writing down, because you never know what you're going to remember and forget between now and the time you start writing. Write down your experiences and tell you and write out what that made you feel and how does that apply to you becoming a doctor. And I think now, honestly, after having this conversation, I want to start getting my first drafts in for my residency. And just by the time, collected my experiences, I've gone over a couple of times as to why I want to go into this specific residency or whatever, I should be okay. It's just collecting those experiences and collecting, okay, this is why I want to be a doctor. This is why I want to be this specific kind of doctor. Having that written down is going to help you immensely. Because right now, you're just kind of going off of everything that's in your head. You're just like, okay, why do I want to be a doctor? Let me think about it. As opposed to, if I flip through this journal, it's like, wow, this really affected, this specific experience really affected me. Let me base my personal statement off of that. It's so much easier if you write everything down, because you're not going to remember everything whenever you're getting asked a question. Make sure you journal. I actually just set aside a journal this morning to be like, okay, this is going to be my experience notebook. If I ever have an experience that I want to write down, I'm going to put it in here and make sure that I have it down. So please make sure you write everything down, so you have something to write about when it comes time for it.
I co-sign that 100,000 million%. And the other thing that came to mind when you said that too is, if you journal and you write out your thoughts and you realize you actually don't want to do this, that's okay too. That's the point. Because you know how many times I've been like, oh, I should do this. And I start writing the notes. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know if that's what I want to do anymore. Because journaling, not only journaling, but writing in general, it's actually a form of thought processing. You may think one thing, but when you actually break it down to write it out, and you're like, do I really want to be an emergency medicine physician? Do I really want to be in a fast-paced setting all the time? Do I really want to be an orthopedic surgeon? Do I really want to be in surgery all day long? Do I really want to be a physician?
Yeah.
When I think about all that's happening right now, do I really want to go into this industry? Do I really want to be in this kind of situation with patients? Do I want this kind of intimacy with patients? Things like that. When you start writing and you go past that, like science, and I want to help people, you realize that there's a lot of ways to help people with science, not just medicine. So if you find yourself writing and you cannot come up with a why, or you realize yours is more of a why not, that's completely okay. That means the process is working.
Save time, because if you are just thinking about, oh, these are all the why nots, and then you've done this for a couple of years, and then you finally sit down to write down, and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even want to do this. Time has passed. As opposed to doing it now, you're like, oh, actually, I don't really want to do this. And then you have more time to figure out what you do want to do. I think that's really important. And I think that's also kind of why, not to go off into a completely different subject, but also kind of why shadowing is pretty important. It's like, this is specifically, like, you have different volunteering things and being compassionate and different things like that, but this is specifically being a doctor, which is what you're trying to go to school for. Specific experience is going to be most likely is the closest thing you can get to what you're going to do. So if you don't like any part of it at all whatsoever, it's like, okay, you need to reconsider, like, if you want to be a physician.
Medicine in and of itself is a not so smooth road that you have to be prepared to embark on, and so it takes a lot of really looking back at your experience and seeing, how does that measure up with what I'm probably going to end up facing in my future career. So I hope that these things have helped. I hope that you guys have gained a lot. I really hope that, this approach to the personal statement is helpful, and that you guys get a peek into what we've been doing for years and what we've had to do over and over. Best believe you're going to be doing this over and over every single level, for medical school, for residency, for fellowship, even for your job later on. You're going to have to reflect and reflect and reflect and reflect. So get going now. Thank you so much, Nick, for helping me to do this.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure to have you on. And I hope that people will tune in later on when we put your story out there as well, because I think it's a fascinating story. And I think it's going to really touch most people because everybody has a little piece of your experience in their lives. And I think people will benefit from listening in. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I am so glad that we did this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, I'm your host, Tommy Talks, and this has been the NSSR. You guys stay encouraged, have peace in your life, give this new year a better outlook than the last one. And you guys have a part in that and you can do it. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Don't forget to tune into previous interviews and previous topic videos that we've done on this channel. One of which is probably right there, and one of which is probably right there. Definitely subscribe and turn on your notifications for more information.